Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Dixon versus Harper fight. And so if you're on your around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do need a like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Dixon is 10-0 with 1 KO and Harper is 14-2 with 6 KOs. This fight is for the WBO World Lightweight title. Dixon's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Carabajal, and Harper's last fight was a loss via stoppage in round 4 versus Ryan. Harper is moving down in weight, going down from a welterweight. Dixon is a southpaw. Harper's losses have come versus Ryan in 2024 and Baumgartner in 2021, both of them coming via stoppage loss. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, obviously, like I say, this is that WBO title in which Dixon picked up last time out, and I'm going to, speak a bit more about the last fight in just a moment. But of course, to be honest, this is lucky that this event's even happening with everything that's happened with it being rescheduled, moved about, and everything like that. I mean, it was meant to be, I believe, on the undercard of the original Prograis versus Catchall fight. Then that got moved to then, I believe, going to London for Fisher to fight Rudenko as a headline. I might be wrong with this, I'm just trying to go off my memory. And then now it's in Sheffield, of course, with Dixon. Well, it was then, I don't know, but Dixon's now fighting Harper, and it's not really as big of an event anymore. I mean, it was meant to have Vuong versus Hughes on it, and of course, now that's gone as well. So, like I say, it's not really a massive event anymore, but it's still headlined by a world title fight. And like I say, last time out, Dixon picked up her world title, and it was a very impressive performance, realistically. In my opinion, there were certain people that said perhaps Carabajal nicked quite a few of the rounds and perhaps maybe did enough to strike a case for a win or a draw. But in my opinion, I thought that Dixon did enough to win, and she got a really nice knockdown as well, which was an added bonus against somebody in the Carabajal who is difficult to fight against and has caused problems to multiple different fighters, including that of Katie Taylor in the past as well. And like I say, it was a step up in a performance, and it was an impressive win, and one in which has now, I believe, brought her a lot of confidence and has brought her now, of course, to where we are now, which was this fight versus Harper. And Dixon, of course, has Anthony Crower in her corner. It's the name in which has helped probably propel her quite a lot in her career. Dixon, of course, hasn't really had much experience coming into the professionals, so she has been moved relatively quickly, saying, like I say, she hasn't had realistically that much amateur experience. I believe she only had like a few white collar fights, and that was it. And now she's, of course, had this opportunity here. But she's earned where she's gotten to, and it's been improving a lot with every fight, which is always nice to see with fighters who are getting progressed quickly. It's nice to see them getting and improving with each and every fight. And obviously Harper is at a different end in her career. She's had, of course, just I believe 8 more fights, more than that Dixon, which is quite a lot more. And like I said, she's perhaps coming into the later parts of her career, but she's still got, I believe, life in her. And obviously she's moved down in weight. It's an interesting thing, her moving down in weight. Obviously, she's seemingly always said that this isn't her natural weight. She's going to be more comfortable at this weight and things like that. And she was originally at lightweight, I believe, when she was first fighting for her titles, and then went down to super featherweight to then fight Baumgartner, in which it seemed like she was too small there. And then she moved up and ended up at super welterweight at some point, and fought Brackhouse at super welterweight, and then moved back down again because that performance against Brackhouse really wasn't that impressive, and she looked like she was slowing down and things like that. She didn't really look too comfortable. And then, of course, last time out versus Ryan, that really wasn't the best of showings from her against Ryan. It was quite a poor performance. I mean, Harper did move up and has had wins in the past at a higher weight. Of course, the likes of Habazin and Rankin as well is another fight which was a good one for her when she was moving up a couple of weight classes, and it was quite a surprising win for her. But like I say, that last time out, that performance versus Ryan, coming off the poor performance before that versus Brackow, she's now, it's now interesting to see her now moving down in weight, and yet again saying that she wasn't at her natural weight, and now this is going to be her natural weight. It's interesting to hear, and it was a poor performance versus Ryan. Ryan looked excellent in that fight, and probably was one of her, if not her best performance, but Dixon really wasn't able to deal with Ryan at all in that fight, and perhaps that, like I say, is showing that she is perhaps slowing down a little bit and just becoming a little bit more vulnerable in positions in which Dixon, of course, is going to want to, execute and be able to deliver against. And Dixon is coming into this saying that Harper in her last fight quit on her stall. She was taking a lot of onslaught, so it's not really bad that her corner jumped in, but like I say, she's saying she quit. Obviously, like I say, so Dixon's also a southpaw and probably does fit that kind of stereotype which says kind of southpaws are tricky. I believe she is a tricky southpaw with the movements that she has. Like I say, it does seem quite difficult to pin her down a lot of the time. But to speak about them both individually as fighters, like I say, I believe that Dixon is improving with every fight and every step up. She has, of course, been able to deliver and get up to there and be able to have success there and be able to get wins. And so, like I say, she is improving with Anthony Crolla. It seems to be progressing very well so far, and she's used to being on these big stages as well, similar to that of Harper. But Harper is perhaps more used to being the underdog, and so isn't really, I'm sure, too phased if there is a fan base more towards Dixon or not. She's got a good jab, Dixon. Sometimes I believe she does forget to use it a little bit, and perhaps coming into the later rounds versus Caraballo, she was forgetting to use it. But in the earlier rounds, she was using it very well. I think she moves excellently. I think her movement is probably her best thing. It's very tricky and awkward and hard to pin down, like I said, and she finds angles, she works angles. Perhaps it was more difficult versus Caraballo because Caraballo wasn't really biting onto any of the feints in which Dixon was throwing, but it was, like I say, really interesting to see just the upper body movement and then just the quick kind of fast pivots in which he was manoeuvring around Caraballo with, and perhaps something like a Harper might bite onto them a bit more than that of Caraballo. She's got good hand speed in the process as well. I believe Harper, when she is at her best, she does have good speed as well. So that could be a similar aspect for both fighters. She's confident, definitely coming into this. But I think with every fight, with every win, she's also gaining more confidence. She doesn't really typically stand and trade too much, but she seemingly says that she wants to come into this fight. I'm not too sure if that's a smart idea or not, but she doesn't really seem to do it too much. She is relatively disciplined, and even after she got the knockdown versus Caraballo, she was still back to her boxing and able to not try and force the fight too much, which was nice, especially when it seemed like her corner was trying to tell her to just kind of rush it a little bit. She is typically a bit more of a back foot type fighter, has that low output, but like I say, moves very well on the back foot. She circles well, she goes to the body well. She's typically, like I say, unpredictable with these awkward movements. It is hard to know when she is going to throw. She has a high guard, and that also means that she isn't really getting caught with too much, similar to that of Harper, who also has that high guard. But like I say, going back to the unpredictable thing, when she did get the knockdown versus Caraballo, it kind of came as a bit of a shock because everybody was like, wow, we didn't really expect that pull counter to be so nice and so clean. But that shows that she does have that skill there and she does have the capability to surprise you. And that's where a lot of the time stoppages can come from when you aren't typically the most powerful punchers. She, like I say, is well disciplined and feints well as well. Negatives about her, I think the power in general, she seems like she has some sort of power, but it's nowhere near perhaps the level of that of Harper. But she's not really known for the power, and I think she's used to that now. And the physicality as well, she's not really that physical, but I also don't think she has the aggression enough to be really getting loads of stoppages either. I think finding range can sometimes be a little bit of a problem. Perhaps that's why she might forget her jabs at point. Uh, Timing of counters, obviously, of course, except from that third round one, which was really nice. Sometimes, and in general, her timing isn't always excellent, even not with the counter, sometimes with the jab as well. Similar to that of Harper, I've seen a lot of the times fights get a little bit more messy, and it was getting messy into later rounds versus Caraballo, and Harper's, a lot of her fights have got messy in the past as well because of the lack of timing and, just ducking kind of shots in and smothering the work in close a little bit. I don't think her comfort in close is anything that much because I think she can stand straight on and look a bit uncomfortable in close, similar to that of Harper, but I think Harper is more likely to respond in close and throw a combination of shots than perhaps Dixon is. She can lunge in, Dixon, like I say, trying to find that range. She stands straight on, like I mentioned, being the aggressor, and she isn't really known for that, and she does have a low output, and that's where rounds can sometimes go into the opposition's favour just because she isn't really throwing that much. She needs to gain that respect, but I also don't think Harper is always known for gaining the respect of her opponents. Landing clean, I don't really think she always is landing clean, similar to that of Harper at times. She can get caught on the way out after kind of clinching exchanges, and that's what Caraballo was having success with last time out. I think she does slow into the later rounds of the fight and finding her openings. Like I say, she's very good at working angles and things like that, but actually waiting and finding the gap. If somebody isn't biting on them feints, then she could struggle a little bit, and that's where she might become even more reluctant to throw. Harper as a fighter, I believe she can fight at an in close or a mid range. Like I say, I think like she does stand her feet straight on, and she is willing to stand and trade a little bit more. But like I say, she is able to throw exchanges when she wants and throw combinations when she wants in close. Like I said, better than that of Dixon. She's got solid head movements as well. When she wants to be moving around and looks comfortable at a weight, she is moving around as well. And perhaps she wasn't really doing that in the last couple of fights, but she can do that, and I've seen her do that, and I believe that is still there. She of course has the experience. She fights at typically quite a high pace, but also can kind of fight at any kind of pace that the fight ends up going. I think she's experienced now to fight at a slower pace. There's been fights like the Habazin fight and the Brackhouse fight where she has had successes at fighting a fighter who wants to fight at a bit of a slower pace. She moves well. She has fast hands as well. It's just typical to that of Dixon. She has willing to respond to anything, so I think it could be perhaps into the later rounds where Harper perhaps is able to give a bit more and really give her all. Perhaps he might find success where Dixon might tire. She can get behind her jab relatively well. Sometimes she forgets about it, but when she does, it's nice to see. She has perhaps, like I say, a higher output than that of Dixon, a high guard. Fighting in messy fights, I think she's used to and can deal with bit better than that of Dixon just through experience. And like I say, she does give her all in her fights. Not saying that Dixon doesn't, but she hasn't really seemed to perhaps need to quite as much as of yet. Harper's negatives, I think, like I say, physical strength against Ryan, she just completely got out physicaled. And I mean, Dixon isn't really somebody who's going to put on loads of physical kind of pressure, so I don't really think that's going to matter too much. Gaining your respect, like I say, sometimes she struggles with that, but like I say, there is times in which in close she can kind of put you on the back foot if she does throw a combination that perhaps quite catches you off guard a little bit. Getting off the ropes herself, she just sometimes looks a little bit unwilling to do that. She can just cover up. Perhaps the jab can become a little bit weak at times. It is good to get behind it, but it can seem a little bit weak at points, and finding her range can sometimes be a problem. She's not always, or she hasn't really got momentum with her at the moment, so I don't really necessarily know where her mindset is coming into this. Perhaps she's slowing down. She can smother, finding her range, like I say. She can overreach, similar to that of Dixon. Timing, like I say, similar to that of Dixon, can be off. Stand straight on, again, similar to that of Dixon. And landing clean, perhaps I think she doesn't really land as clean as what she would want to at times. Dixon is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Dixon will win via unanimous decision. Perhaps if this was a fight a few years ago, then it could have been different. I think Harper, in the long term, perhaps that move, when she did move up in weight after fighting ranking, perhaps that wasn't really the best of things for her to do in her career. But nonetheless, I think Dixon, at this point in her career, is going to be able to move better, find shots better. I think Harper's gonna bite onto feints, and Dixon's then gonna be able to have success from that. Find a little bit of a rhythm. Hopefully, not really get drawn into too much of a firefight. I think Harper is good on the front foot, but is probably going to need to be in close on the front foot to find a lot of success. And I think it could be a minimal kind of output of the fight again from Dixon if she can just keep moving around. Like I say, if Harper isn't able to find her range, and that's where she could win. Like I say, via unanimous decision, where it's just a nice moving performance, which isn't really too much of a firefight in which it is. They are both wanting, but I don't necessarily think it could happen. And then perhaps, like I say, Harper might have success into the later rounds, but I think the early rounds to the mid rounds at Dixon will just pick up, and it'll be too much for when Harper comes on. And then who she could go on to fight? I mean, Ferreira is with Matchroom. She's the IBF champion. It would make excellent sense to make as a fight, but I just don't see at this point in her career Matchroom really risking that fight, and because it is a very, very tough ask to fight Ferreira. I think Ferreira is probably the best lightweight around, perhaps up there with her and Dubois are like the two best around, and it's sad to see that fight not happening, but I think Dixon, it would be a very tough fight for Dixon to be able to deal with. So other fights, Ferreira, who's an Argentinian type fighter, she has been getting a lot of stoppages recently, coming off a nice first round stoppage against an unbeaten opponent. Perhaps that could be a fight to make. Or Choi, just another person who's highly ranked around. But like I say, it's going to be interesting to see where she can go from there, Dixon, because I don't really think there are necessarily loads of big options there available unless she wants to go in with a Ferreira or a Dubois, which are really big asks at this point in her career. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.